Hey there guys, this is Dark Chieftain coming with my first ACW 1.2 multiplayer battle replay commentary. It's a bit of a mouthful. This is my first video. I plan on making commentaries over battles. I might make some cinematic videos here and there, but for now it's just going to be these replay commentaries, just going over the strategy, some of the mistakes that myself and other players make, some of the good things we do, and just the overall strategy of this great multiplayer mod for Napoleon Total War. This is a 1v1 between myself and a rather large figure in the community. He's called Wolf, the Gamer King. He has been around for quite a while and is very knowledgeable when it comes to the armies and units in the game. So we have a pretty good fight here, very back and forth. It's only a 1v1, which are not super common, but I like 1v1s because it really tests your skill against another person's skill. You don't have to worry about other armies or getting double teamed or anything like that. So that's why I'm going to throw in some 1v1s here and there, but most of my games will be 3v3s and 4v4s for that large scale action. So without further ado, I'm going to skip to the action and we'll get right into it. So, as all battles do, you start out with some scouting. Here I have my skirmishers getting up on the road from the woods. They're going to head towards the center of the map and try and delay Wolf, or at least figure out where he is, so I can set up my artillery and get my infantry up. One thing to note about this map, which I will put in post, is that it's basically one large gradual hill. The edges of the map go up to the center, so there's not really anywhere good to put artillery. Anywhere where you put it that isn't the center, as you can see here, it's all downhill in basically every direction, and there's just nowhere great for artillery. So that's one thing, one struggle we had, Wolf and myself, on both sides. Was figuring out where to put the artillery. I ended up deciding to put my artillery, some 12-gun Napoleons, over here, and I also have a unit of 4-gun 3-inch batteries, which will be deploying on the flank as well. I figured he's probably going to come up over the center of the hill through the woods and try to take the point in the center. So I wanted to get a nice angle on him from the side here so I could do some work with artillery. So here we have the first sighting of the Confederate force. Wolf is playing Heath's division, the Confederate 3rd Corps, which is a pretty good division to use in this game. It's got his general, of course, Major General Heath in the back there. The reason I can see them is I got my skirmishers up here on the center of the map. They got a downhill view. Even though there's woods here, they can still kind of see those units. So I'm going to just move the skirmishers up into the woods and try to delay him as long as possible. I want to get my Napoleons right up here in the center of the point so I can get some good canister shots and hopefully wipe out a lot of his men. I also have my 3-inch back here. They are going to focus more on counter battery, eliminating Wolf's artillery. And at the same time, I have another unit of skirmishers on the right flank here. My hope was to sneak them in here and maybe hit his artillery from behind when he wasn't paying attention. However, he spotted them fairly quickly, and that does not work. Those guys don't do much of anything. Here you can see the first shots of the game. We have his 55th Virginia Skirmish Company, 13 men, coming up on the flank of my 31st Ohio, 23 men. And he's going to flank and get some shots off at me while I work to reform and get some shots off at him. My artillery set up. I didn't realize at the time. I thought they were high enough on the hill, but they really aren't. The hill's kind of in the way. They aren't going to be able to shoot this direction or right to the left at all. They're pretty much going to be limited to the right for firing. Obviously, he's playing Heath's division of the Confederate 3rd Corps. I am over here playing the 14th Corps for the Union. This corps was my first time playing this corps. It's relatively new for me. I had not played a game in ACW in a couple of years, and when I got back, lots of new armies to play with, so this is my first attempt at playing 14th Corps, just getting a feel for how they play. Generally, it's a cavalry-heavy corps, but I don't tend to bring cavalry, so kind of seems like a bad idea to bring this corps for me, but again, just casual game between me and Wolf. I wanted to try it out, see how good it is. You see, looks like he's got some artillery set up in the woods here that I can't see, and he's bombarding my Napoleons there in the center. And now my skirmishers are engaged in his main infantry line along with my artillery. At this point, with them in the woods and so few men in my skirmisher companies, I don't expect to do a lot of damage. It's mostly just a distraction until my main infantry force can get up in front of my guns. As you can see here, I'm still in column. Not a great idea when his artillery's opened up. I was a little slow to readjust my lines. Column I like to use in the early game just to keep my army consolidated and all in one spot. Helps me with organization and stuff. But as soon as the artillery opens up, I tend to move them into lines just to minimize the casualties taken. But a little bit of rust, so I don't do that. And these guys are at risk of taking lots of casualties here. So as the infantry gets closer, because he's not even bothering to fire at my skirmishers, the chances of them actually getting reasonable kills on his men is so low, and they don't really pose a threat to infantry regiments. So he's just going to march up close and unleash a volley and eliminate my men. So what I end up doing, pulling these skirmishers back into this building here, so they can distract as long as possible and hopefully stay alive. Normally I wouldn't do that. Buildings can be glitchy, and you don't want to force your opponent to have to sacrifice a unit to melee charge the building, because once they're in there, there's a good chance that they will not come back out. They'll glitch out inside the building. So I don't want to say it's frowned upon, but not recommended. For now, it's just going to be some skirmishing and artillery fire. I'm going to fast forward until the real action starts. So here I brought up my third unit of artillery, 4-gun of 3-inch, get some fire at his line. I saw where he was deploying, so I decided I was going to defend this hillside here with some units and artillery, make him come to me, because he does have a better defensive position than me. Being in the woods, his men have cover, they're going to take less damage, and I would have to attack across open ground, which would mean lots more damage than my men would take. In the meantime, here you can see some units opening up. Got the 88th Indiana firing across the crossroads into the forest. Got my 2 skirmisher companies who aren't long for this battle. They're getting hit pretty hard by his infantry, plus the artillery from this left flank over here. So you'll notice I pulled my line back here on the left. My skirmishers routed. I don't want to be in range of this forest. I want to make him come out into the open and fight me in equal format. And you'll also notice that my Napoleons have 3 chevrons. Generally, when artillery is getting lots of chevrons, it means they're getting lots of kills and being very effective. In this case, what ended up happening is he lines his men up along this forest here, and it just happened that where my artillery was lined up perfectly with his units, where they were getting great shots directly into his units. So you can see some of the casualties. This unit here has lost 19 men. This unit here has lost 9. 55th Virginia. And he's getting shredded by artillery. He's lost 10 men with the 47th Virginia. 14th Tennessee has lost 17 men. 7th Tennessee, they've only lost 1, but they're on the flank. I'm not really targeting them. So he kind of moves his guys back, trying to get them to be hidden in the woods and below the hill, so my artillery can't hit him. Unfortunately for him, my artillery can still hit him, as you can see here, which means he's going to continue to take casualties from my artillery. And as long as my artillery is here and he's not able to drive it off with his artillery in the woods over here, I have the artillery advantage. And he's going to have to come out and attack me, because I can sit here all game. There's no ammo limit for the artillery. I can just blast his troops to shreds while I sit here and wait for him. Some people would call it camping, but it's strategy. You know, you either defend or you attack. So my best option to try to win this game is to attack, or is to defend rather, and force him to attack from the woods. Over here you can see he rolled out a couple of units to hit me in the flank. So I shifted over the 11th Michigan, who are taking some serious casualties. I also have the 18th United States and 19th United States shifting over to assist the Michigan. So with 14th Corps, the United States regiments, I don't know how many, there's like 5 or 6 of them. They are some of the better units you can get with 14th Corps. They are great in melee, especially melee defense. So they're a must-have if you ever use this corps, as they're going to provide that support in melee against Confederates, which across the board have better melee than Union. Just a fact of life with this mod. Another unit you definitely want to bring with 14th Corps is the 21st Ohio, which I'm currently moving over to the left flank. This unit, fairly large, even on medium unit size, they have 281 men. So on large or ultra unit size, they could have, over 400. And they have repeaters, so they have a very short reload rate, decent accuracy. It's a expensive, considered elite unit. So I'm getting them out in the open field where they can do the most work. I'm going to try to flank his infantry and just do as much damage as I can. Break his flank here so I can swing my force around and hit the woods if necessary. Back on the left, you can see his unit is actually about to break because of the artillery they're taking. Units in this mod, when under artillery fire, have a loss of morale. So you don't want to always do lots of casualties. This is an exception, but they do lose lots of morale when they're under direct artillery fire. You can see these cannons have a beautiful direct line of fire into the artillery or into the infantry line, and these guys really don't stand a chance. They are going to break eventually, this 14th Tennessee here. You can also see I realized that my artillery in the back was not doing any good, so I'm bringing them up into a similar position as my other R2 artillery to try to get that enfilade fire on his infantry. I also had a unit of Wisconsin boys, 10th Wisconsin, just protecting my 3rd artillery unit from cavalry. Don't want to lose the artillery unit for no reason. And here my Napoleons have 4 chevrons already, and we're only 40 or 20 minutes into the battle. That means they're causing lots of casualties to his units in this flank. It's really going to pay dividends in the long run as his casualties mount, and I'm not taking any infantry casualties on the right flank. Over here, I'm not doing nearly as well. His 2 units are out shooting me pretty handily. This Michigan unit's taking a lot of casualties. They're probably going to break soon at this rate, so I'm bringing up the 15th United States to replace them. And there you can see flying across the screen, he actually was able to sneak up his Napoleons right here, which I cannot see even though they're in the wide open road. And he's hitting my guys with canister shot, which is going to shred multiple units. It's going to cause me a lot of issues throughout the battle. He's also moving some reserves over to counter my 21st Ohio. You have the 13th Alabama and 1st Tennessee moving over. A little bit of overlap here. He's got some guys sticking out of the front of his unit, but it's not a huge deal. If the units that are firing don't have a direct line of sight, they'll usually not fire. Sometimes that'll cause issues where they do have a direct line of sight, but they don't think they do and they don't fire. But there you can see the canister that I was unaware of at this time is shredding my United States units here, and I've got to shift the Michigan, which just came out of combat, to plug this gap in my line. Over here, he realized that he was not going to be able to sit in the woods all day, and he came out to attack me. My artillery still has a direct line of fire. He instantly lost the 22nd Virginia. They got hit by canister, and as you can see, it did not go well for them. And as his units sit out here in the open, in canister range, they're really not going to do much. But he has no choice. Since my artillery was shredding him in the woods anyway, he has to come out and try to take out my artillery at range, or he's going to lose all his men on his left flank. So here he's got the 42nd Mississippi, 288 men, down to 251. They're going to come out and hit me on the flank. I see that. I'm kind of outnumbered in terms of number of regiments here, so I'm bringing some reserves up. Here's that 10th Wisconsin from before. They're going to come around between these rock piles and try to assist against the 42nd Mississippi. Regardless of infantry numbers or numbers of regiments, he is just getting shredded by artillery still. It's not going well for him and his men, so his men are going to start breaking here one by one. They're taking heavy casualties. He also brings over his biggest unit, his 26th North Carolina, which has 421 men. And on ultra settings, it's a 1-to-1 scale with Gettysburg. I believe it's 842 men that they mustered at the start of Gettysburg. Gettysburg Day 1, they had some major battles with the Union Iron Brigade. But he's going to bring them over, try to really reinforce his attack and push me back. Try to get that artillery out of the game. Over on the left, we have my 21st Ohio. I spread them out as much as I can so they take less artillery damage. And as you can see, they have a near constant fire coming from this unit. And these two smaller units aren't going to stand a chance. They haven't even started firing the 1st Tennessee, and they're already down to 115 men. So you can see the smoke cloud that's happening over there. I brought that artillery from the far rear of my line over to this side to try and counter his artillery that's on the road here. And he realizes that these guys are not doing so hot. He brings his general over to increase their morale. And these guys must have gotten down to tired because he stopped firing probably to rest them down to or back up to fresh before he reopens fire. Meanwhile, I'm not really paying attention on the side, so my men are all tired. I should have turned them off and then pulled them back a bit until they were rested. But I am bringing up some, well, not really. 18th United States broke. They came back with my general there. At some point, I bring some more reserves from the right flank over to the left to fill in the gaps. But 1st Tennessee is down to just over 50% of their strength. They're not going to stay much longer, which is going to force him to pull back on the left. On the right, my artillery is still doing work. Got the 26th North Carolina. They've lost over 100 men already, and they're going to break for the first time. That direct artillery fire is just devastating to them. So now of the 7 or 8 units he had on the side, at least 5 have broken. Most of them have come back, but a couple, like the 14th Tennessee and the 22nd Virginia, have not come back, and they most likely won't. The 26th North Carolina will. They have plenty of men left. And they're not exhausted yet, so they should come back. They're glitching out a little bit. Half of them are running towards my men and half are running away, but they're going to reform here. Over here on the Confederate right flank, the 1st Tennessee broke, and now my 21st can shift fire to the 13th Alabama. I'm actually going to pull them back. They were a little bit in the way of my artillery here, and I wanted some direct fire shots, so I pull the 21st back. Don't want to take too many casualties. They've lost, almost 70 men. I'm going to pull them back, let them rest, and push them back into the fight once they're fresh and ready to go. In the meantime, I'm going to let my artillery try and drive him from the field. There you can see that. Smoke Puff, his artillery has switched from shooting my infantry to trying to kill my artillery. He's got it down to 19 men, but because of the slight hill, he actually hit some of his own men here. He can't get a direct shot at my guys, at my artillery, so it's not working very well. Over here, 7th Tennessee broke now. He's pulling back into the woods. Took a lot of casualties. He's got to reform and prepare a different strategy to try and push me out of this field and eliminate my artillery position. Over on this side, it's still just that long-range field battle, or line battle. These two units are both very big, over 200 men on medium unit size. They're going to be there for a while, even with 3 units firing at them, plus artillery. So here I realize he's pretty weak in the right, so I start shifting reserves over to the left. My plan is to push these 3 units out of the field, hopefully rout them, and I can hit his artillery from the center here, use this building as cover. And then once these units are gone, I should be able to push him into the woods and finish him off. So now 21st Ohio, they're fresh, reformed, their morale's high. I'm going to move them back up into range and start opening fire on the 13th Alabama, try to turn his flank. At this point, he probably sees my reserves coming over. Yep. And he's going to at some point soon, he's going to actually start pulling back this line because he's outnumbered and he's taking heavy casualties over here, as you can see. Really what won me this game, and obviously Wolf will tell you the same thing, is the artillery. If it wasn't for the artillery advantage that I happened to have, I likely would have lost this battle. You know, if it's just infantry versus infantry, the Confederates will win the majority of the time. You can see he actually, in an attempt to get rid of my artillery, because I've just given him such grief with artillery, he's pulled his unit over to this side where they can get direct line fire at my artillery units, and I think he's targeting this Bridges battery, Illinois Light Artillery, on my left flank, but my guys are going to get some kills and actually drive his artillery off. Not great for him, but, you know, good for me, so. Over here, the 21st Ohio was not close enough to open fire, so I'm sending them up, trying to get him in range so I can get some volleys off on the 13th Alabama. I'll let you guys see the volley. There you can see at this range, it's pretty much max range. A full volley causes a few casualties, but nothing significant enough to like rout a unit in one volley. But he realizes he's outnumbered and outgunned here. It's not worth holding this position, so he's actually going to pull his units back, likely to this woods, try and get a new position so that I can't eliminate him entirely. It looks like he went a little fast. He forgot to mount his general back up, so the general, he might have changed his mind now, but it's going to be harder to move his general back and forth without the horses. I see, you know, I've got a 2-to-1 advantage in terms of regiments. His guys are all tired and weak. I'm going to push this hard. I don't want to let his men escape without taking extra casualties. But I have to worry about this artillery in the center hitting me in the flank with canister, which has caused a lot of casualties, as you can see here. 2 units have lost probably combined 40% of their men to canister. Another 2 units have probably lost 25% of their men to it. So I'm going to pull my weak units back. They're very tired. They're going to sit behind this slight hill out of the artillery fire, while these reserves that I brought over, 18th United States, 2nd Ohio, and then the 18th United States. There's 2 18th United States, interesting. And the 21st Ohio is going to continue pressing this attack. Right now I'm waiting to advance until I can kill this artillery. What I'll end up doing is, I believe the 88th Indiana, I move them up here. Not a great idea. I was hoping to get a shot off and rout his artillery, but for some reason, even with a unit right here, I couldn't spot his guns, which are shooting me in the face, causing lots of casualties. Not fun. So I realize it's not a tenable position. I pull back behind the house, and I'm going to bide my time until I can see the artillery and hopefully do something about it. Meanwhile, on the right flank, I've started my counterattack. I'm going to line up and then push into the woods, hit his weakened units. His artillery is still here for now. I am going to target it down with mine and try to rout it from the field. He's got his 26th North Carolina, almost 300 men still, coming into the fight. Over here he's got his 42nd Mississippi, which has 238 men. So his artillery on the right flank is actually able to rout my artillery completely, at least this unit. They're down to 16 men. They'll probably come back once they regain their morale, but they got hit pretty hard over here. They lost the caisson. There you can hear they've returned. I'm going to let them rest and then get him back on the guns. Over here I tried briefly to counter battery his artillery, but for the same reason that he couldn't hit my artillery, I can't hit his artillery. So I gave up on that pretty quick. Over here, I'm flanking in the woods. I know if I can press this flank, he's going to have to pull back, or he's going to take lots of casualties while I shoot from the woods, and he's in the open field. So I'm going to, he sees this, and he's going to adjust his line. I run these units up here, trying to get him into firing line, get some volleys off before his guys get out of range.
Your men have been routed, sir.
And thankfully I was able to get at least one volley off. Not a ton of casualties. There's a couple, but again, his guys are pretty much max range, so not a lot of men are going to die in a single volley. Here, I lost another unit to his canister. At this point, I was starting to get frustrated with that, so I'm like, I've got to get rid of that artillery unit. I'm going to use this Indiana unit to get around the building and take out his artillery quick. So it stops shredding my men in the left flank, as you can see. Considering how small scale this battle is, a lot of casualties for just a couple units. Over here on the right, I'm assaulting the woods. I would say numbers are about even. His men just have lower morale because of their casualties. And the hill is saving my men from the guns. He can't shoot down into my regiments because of this slight rise. But the infantry can, and I'm going to start taking some casualties. Something I prefer not to do, but at this point I thought I had the game in the bag. I didn't quite. I was being overconfident. But I tend to avoid assaulting woods across open ground unless I have a full multi-line army, and I'm going to basically get close, fire a volley, leapfrog a line of men, fire a volley, leapfrog line of men. Basically have 3 lines leapfrogging into the woods, and once I get into the woods, it's an even fight, unless the enemy has better melee and can countercharge me. Usually I wouldn't use that strategy unless I had the superior melee army. I finally got rid of his artillery here. I was able to rush this 88th Indiana around this building and then get a volley off before he could get some canister at me, and they're down to 10 men. They're gone for the game. There, I'm going to fire another volley into his backs just to make sure they don't come back. No kills. So here, I'm focusing his artillery down with my artillery, and they're starting to take casualties. I think he's trying to shoot my infantry. Because there's no line of sight, you can see they're stuck in the glitch where they don't actually fire. They go to fire, and nothing happens. And, oh, you can see another guy just got hit and is down. So that unit's not being useful right now because they can't actually fire at my infantry. I'm sure he was distracted with other things and just didn't realize it at the time. Here he's got a decent wood line here that I'm having to assault, so I'm being cautious, staying at max range to minimize my casualties until my full infantry force can get over here and really push him hard. Trying to separate his army in two, so I've got some units going into the woods over here. It's about even. What's nice is his unit's so big that it's taken forever for his men to get into line. During that time, my guys are getting nice volleys off, causing casualties without taking any of their own. Obviously, once he stops, he's going to get a nice volley off if he's reloaded. Looks like only some of his men had reloads, so it's a win for me. Second Ohio, they've lost almost half their men. They're starting to not be very happy about their situation, so I'm going to rush my general over, try to get them some inspiration. I've kind of told some of my artillery units to stop firing. Just because of the hill, my men are super close to the Confederates as well. I don't want to hit my own men with artillery and risk breaking any units at this critical stage of the battle. Obviously, there's only 15 minutes left, and we're both trying to do our best to win the game. Here his units in the forest are still getting hit by canister from my Napoleons. Not fun. Only 3 of them are firing. This one's glitched out. But there's a slight hill here. They're getting just enough arc on that canister that it's going over the top of the hill and into his men. He's going to have to pull back. He's got less than 200 men against, 5 units. In hindsight, it looks like I'm being kind of cautious over here. I probably could have moved these units forward way sooner. My only thought is that maybe I wanted to let them rest and get their reloads before I put them back in the fight. That way, when they got nice and close in the forest, I get full volley. Over here in the middle, I'm actually starting to lose a little bit. He's got some big units here. Lots of volume of fire. I'm losing multiple units, but at this point, they've taken heavy casualties. I kind of expected it. I just needed these units to hold long enough for my flanking force on the left to roll up his line. You can see here is 2nd Mississippi. They've been fighting for most of the battle. Less than 100 men left. They're way below 50% casualties. or 50% remaining rather. They're not happy. Looks like he probably popped a inspiration or rally with his general. He pretty much just needs to keep his right flank in the battle long enough for his left flank here to roll up my flank. So we're kind of trading. He's rolling my right flank, I'm rolling his left flank. I don't have as much of an advantage as I thought I did, so now it's starting to bite me in the butt. I overextended myself, got too aggressive. Luckily, I got 2nd Ohio back. 80th Indiana is coming back too. I'm not going to send them right back into the fight. They need to rest because they're tired. So I'm going to pull them back to a reserve line behind my main line. And at some point, I should pull these 2 United States regiments back here to try and even out my line. There we go. So he's advancing. I see that. I'm going to pull my units back, reform further away, and at the same time, I'm going to move up my left flank with 21st Ohio to try to push his flank. And as you can see, it's a very close fight here. Unfortunately for Wolf, these 2 units, 11th Mississippi and 2nd Mississippi, both broke at the worst possible time, and now he's only got 2 regiments to fight against my 7 regiments. So I'm going to shoot. He was turning completely to the right here, so I pulled this unit back and got him into firing range, even though they're very tired, just to have that threat of a unit shooting him in the flank, which is going to force him to devote 225 men to a 75-man unit that's not going to hit anything because they're very tired. And over here, he's hopelessly outnumbered and outflanked. There's not much for this 42nd Mississippi to do. And by now, I've realized my advantage. My guys are rested and have reloads, so I'm going to counterattack. These 2 units who were shredded by artillery broke almost immediately. Now I can pull up these units to this flank and help rout his last 2 infantry units. The battle's going to be over pretty quick, so I'm going to fast forward through the rest of it. Looks like he did do a last-ditch melee charge. His guys are exhausted. This unit of 18th United States has high melee defense, has 3 chevrons. At this point in the battle, wasn't that fair of a melee fight. His Mississippi's going to rout completely, and he's down to just his 26 North Carolina, who've lost over half their men, 221 men dead. He's actually going to rout 2 units, my 88th Indiana and my 2nd Ohio, and he's going to start working on another one of my weakened units. Even though he's surrounded on 3 sides, taking fire from, let's see, 7 regiments, he's still going to break one more.
A unit has used all available ammunition.
I'm kind of scared at this point, so I actually pull my units back to reform the line and get some distance between me and him. He's going to form up facing the center of my line at the edge of the woods and make his final stand here. I want to bring my general as far away into the woods as I can. He realizes that it's a lost cause. He's going to melee charge my 2 United States regiments, and it's going to be back and forth. He breaks 1 unit, but his unit also breaks, and that's the end of the fight. He's got his general left, but he's just going to charge them in and let them die, since there's no chance for him to win at this point. It's a really good battle, closer than it seems. Great game to Wolf. I give him credit for being in a bad situation and making the most of it and causing lots of casualties on my side as well. And that's the end. So you see the losses and kills there. With this hardcore mod, the casualties aren't going to be crazy high, usually 40 to 60%, depending on how long the battle is and how fierce the fighting is. A lot of his losses, obviously there's a 500-man disparity there, are from the artillery, that he just didn't have good artillery positions. I had a major advantage there, and I caused a lot of casualties, which you can see if I go to my kills. The Napoleon alone got 214 kills. 15th United States got 200. This 3-inch battery got 166, and this other 3-inch battery got 132. So you have over 500 kills just from artillery, and that completely makes up for the disparity. His artillery had, aside from his 1 unit of Napoleons, had almost no kills. So good game, Wolf, and look forward to fighting many more.